Long ago, there lived in ancient Greece a girl called Arachne, who learned how to spin and weave from her mother. She became so clever with her needle that before long her work was even better than her mother's, and merchants came from near and far to buy the tapestries she made. "Do you realize I'm making more money than the two of you together?" Arachne said to her mother and father, as she counted the coins which a merchant from Athens had just paid for her last piece of work. "Your skill at spinning and weaving is a gift from the gods," her mother warned her. "Do not boast about it." "My skill at spinning and weaving is something I've learned myself, and has nothing to do with the gods," Arachne said. "I shall charge twice as much for my next tapestry. The great goddess of fine arts, Pallas Athene herself, couldn't spin and weave as well as I do." "Think what you're saying, Arachne," her mother exclaimed. "The gods are jealous of their powers and have many ways of punishing people who offend them." "I'm not afraid of the gods," Arachne cried. "If Athene thinks she can spin better than I can, let her come down from her home on Mount Olympus and prove it." At the time, Athene was on the island of Rhodes, attending a festival in a new temple which had been built for her, so she paid no attention to Arachne's foolish boasting. "Accept the gifts of the gods with a humble heart," her mother continued, turning away with a sigh. But Arachne was not humble. She had challenged Pallas Athene, and the goddess had made no answer. Why? Obviously because she knew that Arachne's work was better than hers. Then one day, an old woman hobbled down the dusty street and stopped at the open door, gazing in at Arachne as she sat in front of her loom. "I am told that a girl who has great skill in spinning and weaving lives here," she said. "Yes, that is true," Arachne answered. "Come in and see for yourself." The old woman came into the room and looked at the tapestry on which Arachne was working. A picture of the hero Perseus setting out on his search for Medusa the Gorgon. "Quite good," the old woman said. "Quite good?" Arachne repeated angrily. "Why, it's as good as anything Pallas Athene herself could do, if not better." "That is an unwise thing to say," the old woman said softly. "The goddess may hear it." "I hope she does," Arachne cried. "I'd like to see her do better than me." The next moment a flash of lightning filled the room, dazzling Arachne so that she cried out in alarm and covered her eyes. When she could see again, the old woman had disappeared. In her place stood a majestic figure whom she immediately recognized to be the goddess Pallas Athene. "Set up your loom," she commanded. "Weave what picture you wish, and I shall do the same. When we are finished, we shall see who is the finer artist." In silence, Arachne and Athene set up their looms and began to weave, while a crowd gathered in the street. "No one can weave as well as I," Arachne thought, as a splendid tapestry of the great fight between Theseus and the Minotaur grew under her fingers. A foolish girl, the goddess thought, as with superb skill she wove a picture of Zeus, chief of the gods, with his wife Hera by his side, surrounded by all the other gods and goddesses. They worked in silence all day and all evening, and just as the sun was sinking behind the western islands, they both finished. "My best work," Arachne thought, looking at her picture of the stone walls of the labyrinth, the fearsome Minotaur, half man and half bull, and Theseus, waiting his chance to kill the monster. Smiling with satisfaction, she crossed the room to look at the tapestry of the goddess. Zeus, with curling hair and beard, sceptre in one hand and thunderbolt in the other, stared out at her. Around him were Hermes with his winged sandals, Apollo the sun god, Artemis, goddess of the moon, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and Pallas Athene herself, stern and accusing. Arachne shivered. Outside, the people clamoured to come in to see the result of the contest. "Magnificent!" they cried, elbowing one another out of the way to see Arachne's tapestry. "The best she's ever done!" But when they came to the work of Pallas Athene, they fell silent, for so perfect was the picture that the onlookers felt that they might at that moment have been among the gods on Mount Olympus. "Pallas Athene is greater than I am," Arachne thought. Now that it was too late, she was ashamed of herself. She wished that she'd never boasted of her skill, that she'd never challenged the goddess. In her shame, she tried to hide herself, edging through the crowd to the darkest corner of the room. "Foolish girl!" Athene called out, pointing her finger at the shrinking Arachne. Once again a flash of lightning filled the room, dazzling everyone. When at last they could see again, Arachne had disappeared, and in her place a little spider scuttled to and fro. "Spin," Athene cried. "Spin by day and spin by night, you who boasted so much of your skill. Because you're ashamed of yourself, hide away in the dark and dusty corners, so that everyone who looks at you and your work will be warned what happens to those who boast about the skills they've been given." And that, so the Greek storytellers said, is why spiders spend all their time spinning delicate webs in dark corners of the room, and why they scuttle away in a hurry whenever they see anyone watching them.